I'm joined now by the All-Ireland winner with Kerry and a selector with Armagh, Kieran Donaghy. He's going to help us look ahead to what should be an exciting finish to the group stages of the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship for 2023. Kieran joins us on Off the Ball in association with Virgin Media as part of their launch for the rollout of 2 gig full fibre broadband to homes and businesses across the country. To celebrate the launch, Virgin Media will be delivering 4,000 boxes of full fibre cereal in Tralee, Cork and Donegal with golden ticket prizes that include Virgin Voyage cruises and €500 Harvey Norman vouchers as well. So a nice prize for anybody who gets those golden tickets. So we can see the link there, full fibre broadband, full fibre cereal. I suppose that brings us on to breakfast, and it might be because I'm a little bit hungry as well, but I want to hear how you prepared for a match yourself on the day of a game. How would your breakfast look like if you were playing this weekend?
Yeah, I was always a kind of I kind of get up early and have some cereal kind of guy. I didn't like the big dinners before games, so I definitely have some probably porridge early in the morning. Get out for my walk and walk some of that off, and then I'm a big kind of I like the eggs, all types, fried, scrambled, poached. And yeah, I would have always gone for something like that afterwards with brown toast or white toast, even on the day of the game, probably. And yeah, I do like going for a breakfast. Nearly as much as I like going for dinner in the evening. So yeah, it's look, obviously it's a key meal for an athlete to make sure you're right, but it's probably the few days before is where it's probably even more important. You probably get away with a lot the morning of the game, but yeah, for me it was always porridge early and a bit of a walk to get that off, and then maybe have a bit of eggs on top of it.
And was that something that was kind of mandated to you by a nutritionist? Were you somebody that could follow the nutrition guides easily, or did you have to kind of lock up the sweet press and not open it until the summer was over?
No, unfortunately, I never locked the sweet press. I said that I'm putting in enough without denying myself a bit of chocolate with a cup of tea at night time after a
Fair
long
enough.
hard day, whether it be training, work, or whatever. So yeah, no, never locked the sweet press. And obviously, when you go away with teams for big games, everything is kind of prescribed and everything is there for you. And we Kevin Beasley with Kerry and obviously we Julie Davis would look after an awful lot of that stuff with Armagh. So 2 highly skilled and qualified people to kind of show you the way, and you'd follow their lead as best as possible. But it was we weren't quite like I think Oisin McConville and Stevie McDonald were good guys to maybe skip the team breakfast and head to the real part of the restaurant and get the eggs and the black puddings and all the good stuff.
Never did them
So
any harm.
I don't think players do that these days. But yeah, no, I think certainly from my playing career, we kind of ate what we were told once we went away with the team.
And that's the life of an athlete. What's the life of a selector like? Can you eat whatever you like now?
Yeah, it's not as good. Myself and Kieran McKeever last weekend we had a bit of a training weekend, and we said the last time we had a training weekend all we did was eat and eat more. And I don't think we liked the scales either of us when we got back. So we went for a good hard set of runs after the first session, so we could maybe go in and enjoy the food guilt free that we were stuffing into our gobs. So yeah, it's you definitely have to be more careful, but it's obviously look when you're selecting, it's you still have to feed yourself, but you're obviously not burning off what you would as a player out in the pitch before, especially in this heat that we're having the last number of weeks. It's been an incredible spell of weather. So I suppose the stuff you're talking about around breakfast and diet and liquids are hugely important at the height of the summer.
And just tell us a bit about dealing with the heat, because we know it is getting hotter every summer now, and part of the whole appeal of the GAA is playing out in the sunshine, and we like to have those big kind of warm days, but it is getting that little bit too hot now. And do you have to change your approach to games? I think it might be a little bit of rain in Carrick on Sunday, so that might actually help a little bit. But do you have to kind of factor in these water breaks now and making sure the players are getting enough hydration in the game now?
Yeah, look, I think that you know. it's difficult when the weather gets good to kind of maintain the players' liquids the way they want to, with the pace of the game now, the way it's so end to end, the amount of running they're doing, the way that the people aren't allowed to bring on the water onto the pitch anymore to get it around. Some players in the middle channels mightn't get out to the wings that often to notify someone. You don't have time after restarts. You really only have if someone's injured to get water on board. So look, it is. I think having people that could run out with a bottle of water and throw it at a player so he could get it and throw it back was something that's probably missed, especially at this time of the year when the weather is this hot. But yeah, look, the players are aware of, it's probably what you do in the days leading up to a game is probably where your fluid intake is going to be a key. Obviously during the game day you're just trying to replenish and they get half time to do a bit of that, but it is tricky in the heat. There's no doubt about it with the pace, the way the game is played now, and how many transitions and the way multiple players are getting up and down the pitch on both ends. It's a very taxing game on the body, so we have to just make sure that our water guys can alert players and get water into them as much as possible.
In recent years, we've seen the Premier League and kind of international football take on more substitutes in an effort to give players a bit more recovery time and that kind of thing. Do you think the GAA will have to start implementing that as well? Will we start to see more players coming in if they are starting to play in this kind of heat in the summer?
Yeah, I to be honest, I think the modern game, the subs are kind of wrong. I think, in this modern game, limiting ourselves to 5 subs with the pace of the game, with the amount of games that we have during the summer, I think it's something that they have to look at next year and kind of immediately, if not sooner, because when you've this many games in quick succession, for non-professional players, it's you're probably picking up injuries late in games where you probably ideally like to take a player off if he's flagging on the GPS or he's visibly flagging, and you don't have a sub because you only have 5, and then you don't take him off and then he pulls his hamstring and he's missing 3 of the most important games of his season because of that. You know I think they could definitely open it up to more subs, and I think they should open up all the panels to being able to name 30 players to play, because having 30 players playing an A versus B trial match, the wins the night before a huge championship game, and then you have to go and tell 4 fellas that they're not going to be actually down on the team sheet the weekend it's a bit silly the way the game has gone. Like, we 30 players when I was playing, that could tog and come on. I don't get why that has changed to 26 unless it's a revenue saver for county boards or the GA in general, that they don't have to pay mileage to bigger squad numbers, but they're paying it anyway because the amount of players there. I am not sure why it was taken down to 26, but I think it's something they have to look at, whether 5 and 26 is wrong. I think if they had 7 and 30, I think it'll be a far better thing, and at least that late in the game when that player is on the verge of having an injury that's going to spoil the rest of his season, you could potentially get him off. Whereas now you just don't have that option, and he goes on one more hard run or one more hard chase down of a player and something goes. It's a huge punishment for a player now to get injured. When we were getting injured when I was playing, it was, you could get injured in the Munster final and you'd have 7 weeks to get ready for an All-Ireland quarter final. You could nurse most injuries back in that time, whether it be a shoulder, hamstring, whatever. Now the guys are playing every week. So if you do the slightest minor of injuries, you could miss 2 games, and that 2 games could define your year. And you're after training 7 or 8 months to give yourself the best chance, and that injury spoils your season and could potentially spoil a team season if the player is key enough to them. So it's it's something they do definitely have to look at, I'd say.
Yeah, because it is more game time for players. It's more options for you guys, and hopefully that'll lead to better games for supporters as well. So it seems to be a bit of a win-win for everybody involved. And I suppose getting onto game time, that brings us on to the championship format. I'm sure you've been asked this plenty of times, but are you in favour of the kind of group stages that we have now, or do you think that we might need to go back to something we've seen previously?
No. I just think everyone needs to take a bit of a chill pill on it. I think it's I think you can't please everybody. There's no doubt about it. I think when we had the Super Eights in, there's too many dead rubbers. There's too many dead rubbers. That was what's been told. Before that, we didn't have enough games in the summer. Teams weren't getting enough games. Certainly, the Division 3, Division 4 teams weren't getting enough games. That was a fact. The Talton Cup has done a great job in getting high quality games for those people in the summer. Those teams are improving. They're coming up ready to go. You see what Westmeath have done this year. They were 14 points all with Galway until they got the man sent off. They should have probably beaten us in the athletic grounds in that game. Desi Dolan's done a great job with them. The buzz that they got off of winning that the scenes in Mullingar last year, that's in my eyes, that's all good. Is everyone going to be happy? No. Because, as I said, 3 or 4 years ago, we didn't have enough games in the summer. Now we've too many games. We've two coming out of a group. We've too many dead rubbers. Now we've three coming out of a group. There's too many teams coming out of a group. It's, look, you're never going to please everybody, and that's the way modern life is. When everybody has an opinion, you're just not gonna please everybody. But it's year one. You've had Loud come up this year, and they had a really good game against Cork. They went up to Castlebar when nobody gave them a chance, and they lost by one, and potentially could have won that game. So teams are getting great exposure to other venues, to bigger teams, and look for players. I was always on the give me more games any day, rather than training more. So look, as I said, you are not going to please everyone, and that's the way that's the way it is.
No, there's no point in trying either. Some people have been complaining that there has been a bit of a lack of jeopardy in the group stages so far, but there is plenty of kind of victories on the line, and some moral victories as well for teams that can't progress to the next stages. But one thing that Armagh definitely seen is exciting games. Obviously the Ulster final going to penalties. The 1 point win over Westmeath, getting within a couple of points of Tyrone last time out. There's been definitely some exciting games involving Armagh. Just going back to that Ulster final loss, obviously it's the penalties is something that we're still kind of coming to terms with, but it is becoming more common in the game, and it is something we're going to have to factor in for games in the future as well. How do you pick up a team after that? Because it is still a little unusual.
Oh, look, there's no doubt it's incredibly hard to pick up a team. It's look, when you lose a game, even Henry Shefflin said it after the Galway lads, who were heroic the weekend, the way they played, and were obviously really unlucky at the end. And Kilkenny have to get credit for being there and ready to pounce on the mistake. But it's very hard to pick up, especially a team that has been working probably under Kieran for 9 years and working incredibly hard and putting huge sacrifices in to get to an Ulster final and get that chance to win one. And you're there and you're level after normal time, and you were probably did well to get level. The boys did really well in the last few minutes to get level. Then you're in extra time, you probably play better than Derry, and they do really well to get a draw back out of it. And then obviously it goes to penalties, and it turns into a bit of a lottery. But it is hard to pick them up. There's no doubt. No matter what you say, there's still a medal someone that doesn't have in their pocket. That hangover drags on. I think people around them, family members, fans, supporters, people coming up to them, it's possible constant negativity for the week after. Why didn't you do this? Why, when you lose a game at that tight of a margin, there's 101 things that people want to look at about something you could have done better. So it's really hard to pick up a team, and our fellas were heartbroken after that Ulster final, and that's sport. It's tough, but they're great lads, and they're made of tough stuff, and they always come knocking back for more. And I think what you've seen out of this team is there is no quitting them. If you take it back to the Monaghan game, my first year with the lads, the Monaghan game, they were 8 down at half time. Our keeper got COVID before the game, and there was a late change, and Monaghan were outstanding in the first half, and stuck 4 goals past us, and we were 8 down at half time, and our fellas were actually came back, made a huge effort in that second half to actually go up 2 with 3 or 4 minutes to go, until Conor McManus kicked 3 unbelievable scores to win the game in the last minute. And then you've the Galway thing last year where we were dead and buried. You've Mayo this year in the league where you're dead and buried. No, I presume the Armagh fans would be a little happier if we could just go win a game comfortably and give them a bit of peace and quiet. But I think there's a part of them that probably likes the excitement that comes with it too. So I'm sure it'll be no different on Sunday. It's we're going to have to play probably the team that are most people are saying are potentially favourites to win the All Ireland now. They have no pressure on. They're quite comfortable in their position in the group, and they know a win will see them top the group and give them a week off and get ready. But just to touch back on something you said earlier on, there's no jeopardy. There's huge jeopardy in there's only one team that doesn't have anything to play for, and that's Clare. Everybody else is trying to fight for that spot. They could be fourth and they could be desperate to get a chance to go to somebody and play a preliminary quarter final. There's teams top of a group that want desperately to make sure that they have that week off to give their players a bit of a breather and get straight to Croke Park and not have the lottery of that game. There's teams in third that want to finish second, so they're home. There's teams in second that don't want to finish third. So I don't get that there's no jeopardy in these groups. There's been a huge amount of tight games, and there's no team going out to try and tinker or trying to see if they can do something. Every team's going out to try and win, whatever that turns out on the day. It turns out on the day. But as I said, it's more games. I do think there's a huge amount of jeopardy in the groups, whether you're first, second, or third, or ultimately fourth, which is where nobody wants to be because you're out.
Obviously, when the group stages were made, the Armagh-Galway game was one that we all kind of circled because we knew coming into the last week there was going to be plenty riding on this game, and it obviously brings back memories of a fantastically tough encounter, but a really fascinating one from the championship last year as well. You mentioned that Armagh were kind of dead and buried in that game and then came back and unfortunately didn't get over the line on the day. But have you taken many lessons from that loss, and is there anything you can change going into this year, into this game coming up on Sunday, that you think you can get the victory this time?
Yeah, look, like it just comes down to Galway being very good. Like, listen, they were level with Kerry with 3 minutes to go, and we're right there in that All Ireland final. There was a free given at the top end of the pitch that I'm sure Galway wouldn't be happy with, and I'm sure Kerry were very happy with it, and especially when David Clifford put it over to put Kerry a point up. But like, that game was right in the mix. They're a top side. They've added back Ian Burke and they've added in Peter Cook, and they're just a good team. Like, it's like our games are tight against them last year, and our game in the league this year was incredibly tight. They got a goal in the last minute to pip us. It's two good teams. Going at it is probably what's giving you these tight games, and I think it's. I think there's about probably 8 or 9 teams that are sitting there now right now to feel like they can win the All Ireland, and they'd have every right to, because I don't think there's anybody that much out in front. But if you were to say that one team was out in front, it probably is Galway, because of what they've added to last year's depth and just the firepower they have with Comer and Shane Walsh, and Matthew Tierney and Peter Cook and all these guys up the top end of the pitch. They're really strong in the middle of the field. They've probably got one of the best fullbacks in the country in Sean Kelly. He's marking everyone out of it, and he's causing wreck up the pitch and the other end. So, like, they have so many weapons. They're just a top team, and I think Armagh are a top team as well in that debate. So it's two good teams going at each other, and I'm sure it'll be no different on Sunday.
And listen, just before we go, obviously, Kerry are involved against Louth this weekend as well. We haven't really seen the best of Kerry so far this year. What do you think that's down to? And do you think that they will put in a big performance that will make everybody sit up and go, actually, these are the All-Ireland champions, and we do have to take them seriously now?
Yeah, I don't know. Is the answer to the first question. I think the boys are, I've no doubt that they've been working incredibly hard. They probably had a lot of changes in their team earlier on in the league, so they're probably trying to find a bit of rhythm, I would say. Certainly, having the Fossa lads and the Rathmore boys in with the intermediate and junior championships, having to give them a bit of a break afterwards, so they're able to go. There's probably a good bit in that, but I think Kerry, only speaking from my own experience and playing with them, sometimes Kerry need a spark and they need that big game and that big draw to kickstart them and ignite somewhere along the line when we've been struggling historically, is certainly my playing career. And it'll be a tough one for them the weekend. I don't know if it's the game that really kicks them into action. I don't know if it's the game that we're going to see them exploding. Maybe it might, but I know they'll be really trying to get through to the next round in the best position, and maybe when the guns to the head and the knockout element comes in is maybe where you could see them kick into gear.
Well, Kieran Donaghy, thank you very much for joining us. I'm sure you were delighted to see Nikola Jokic capture an NBA title there this week as well.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. I had them picked from a good bit out, so I was delighted to wake up to the news that they got it done, and yeah, it's great to see. It's great to see a player like Jokic get the plaudits he kind of deserves now at this stage of the game, because he's just an absolutely incredible player. I was watching something on ESPN last night where he outscored Kevin Durant's 28.9 points, a few years ago in his finals where he got MVP. Magic Johnson's best assist finals was 9.4. Jokic had 9.5. His one of the best rebounding performances was Tim Duncan. He got 13.2 in some series, some championship day one, and Jokic was above that as well. And then there was 3-point percentage. He had 45% of his threes, which is better than Steph Curry. And obviously you can't compare them as shooters because Steph shoots so many more than Jokic. But the fact that he's making 46% of them, and just he's an incredible all round player that puts the team first and just wants his team to win and doesn't really care about anything else. And that's right up my street as a player. So yeah, really, really, really happy for them. They had a tough few years over the last number of years with him getting MVP and them not getting it done. But I think they put the parts around him this year that really bought into the team ethos, and the coach did an unbelievable job in getting them there. So yeah, it was definitely a good win.
Certainly was. And Armagh looking for a big win this weekend as well. Kieran, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Ed.